Hi friends, it's your art teacher, Miss Barnett. And in this week's lesson called Plant Patterns, we've been talking about how artists are inspired by nature and the things that we find in nature like plants, and that we can use repetition, repeating color, shape, spaces, and lines to create a pattern. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make a stencil, and I'm going to teach you how to make a stencil and how to use a stencil to create a pattern. So what you're going to need today to get started is a big piece of paper. I'll be working on 11 by 17 sheet of paper, but any size paper that you have available to you is fine. You're going to want a manila folder. You want to cut this guy in half, that way you have enough space to make 2 or 3 stencils. You'll need some scissors, something to draw with so you can draw your stencil onto your manila folder. You'll also need a water cup and a brush. I'm going to use a flat-ended brush today because it's a little bit easier to tap and paint in with that for this kind of project, but any kind of paintbrush you have will work. I'm going to have a paper plate as my palette. You'll also need 2 colors of paint. Any 2 colors that you like are fine. I'm not going to worry about the colors. And then you will want some markers and crayons to finish up our project after the paint dries. So gather your materials and meet me back here, and I'll show you how to make a stencil today. Let's go. Okay, kiddos, so we're going to make a stencil today, and a stencil is a tool that artists use when painting to keep shapes the same. And we're going to be making a pattern out of these stencils, which means we're going to repeat in the color, the shape, and even the spacing of our materials. So let's start with a simple leaf shape. Leaves are kind of oval shapes, so remember we can use our thinking marker here to plan. I'm going to practice drawing my leaf shape just like that, and we can give them a little stem, and then we're going to go around and this shape end. Good. There's a leaf. Now let's make a flower. Just keep these shapes super simple. And then we're going to go inside the middle of the shape. Perfect. Now very carefully, we're going to take our scissors and cut out on the outside line. Taking our time to cut nice and neat. Cool. Now we're going to do the flower. Again, children, we're very carefully cutting out our flower, taking our time just like we did with the leaf. Remember, turn the paper as we cut, not your hand, or you'll end up with your hand in a very weird position and it will hurt. Turning the paper. Almost there. Awesome. So now we've got 2 shapes. We've got a flower shape and a leaf shape, but they're not stencils yet. To make a stencil, we're going to have to cut out the middle. And this might be a little tricky, so you might need a grown-up's help. What I'm going to do to get to the middle is I'm going to very carefully bend the paper without folding it, and then come in with my scissors all the way down to the V and do a little snip, making sure I didn't cut the way through. I can then fit my scissors in and very carefully start cutting out this inside shape, just like we did on the outside. Now this is even trickier, so take your time. We don't want to rip this, or otherwise we're going to have to start over. Oh, we're getting there. I can see the shape coming. Just like that. Now we have a leaf stencil. Now let's cut out our flower stencil. Same thing, bend without folding. Carefully take the V of your scissors, go to the middle, do a little snip, making sure that you didn't cut to the edge or we'll have to start over. Fit those scissors in and start cutting out the inside of your shape. You want to make your shapes bigger than smaller, because it's the smaller your shape is, man, it's super hard to get your scissors in there if it's teeny tiny. If you have a bigger shape, you have lots of room to work your scissors around and not cut the edge. Taking my time, turning the paper, not my scissors, not my hand. Almost there, and cut. Now, if I think this looks pretty good. So now I've got a flower and a leaf stencil. Huzzah! Now I'm going to get my paint out and I'll show you how to apply paint to these. All right, kiddos, I've got green paint for my leaf and purple paint for my flower. The next thing I'm going to need is a water cup and some paper towels so I can rinse my brush, and we'll get started and I'll show you how to apply the paint. Here we go. Okay, kiddos, so we're ready to start using our stencils. I've got my water cup, my brush, my 2 colors of paint, one for the leaf, one for my flower shape. And I'm going to start with my stencil. I've already done a little practice just to make sure it worked. And I'm going to lay the stencil where I want it to go on the paper. And I'm going to load my brush with the green, because leaves are green. Making sure that it's not buckling up. And we're just going to come in here and paint. Just like that. Now very carefully. There, we made a leaf. So cool. Now let's try the flower shape. So we're going to place the flower where we want it to be. I'm going to wash my brush because I'm changing colors. And remember, we're making a pattern here. So right now we've got an A-B pattern. We've only got 2 elements to create our pattern, a leaf and a flower. So it's very important where we place the flower is going to be the same. Every time we make a leaf, we're going to place the flower right in the same spot. Here we go. Be careful, don't let this part come up or you won't get a flower shape. So as I'm working, I'm holding the stencil down in the section that I'm working in. I can dab my paint at the edges so I don't have to worry about getting that under the paper, the manila paper. Cool. These are going to look so awesome, you guys. Stencils are super fun. Let's do this last section. Very carefully lift your stencil, and there is my flower shape. So awesome. Now I'm going to continue this pattern, and you can watch. Here we go. Okay, kiddos, so I finished stenciling my flowers and my leaves into a beautiful pattern, and I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll come back in with some crayons and add some details. See you in a minute. All right, kiddos, my stencil painting has dried. Now I'm going to come back in with some crayons and some markers and add some details. It's optional. You don't have to do that, but I think mine needs a little bit more oomph in the picture. Here we go. All right, kiddos, here is my completed Nature's Patterns project. I really focused on the stencils and making a pattern. So even when I came back in with my markers and my crayons to add details, did you notice that I repeated things in the same way? Is to continue the pattern that we had developed with the flowers and the leaves. I hope you had just as much fun making your stencils today and learning how to sponge print and make patterns. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.